So before understanding primary hyperaldosteronism, you have to know about the renin-angiotensin system. Okay. So what is this renin-angiotensin system? There is an enzyme which is called renin. Okay. So this renin is particularly important for maintaining the extracellular fluid volume. This renin is produced by juxtaglomerular apparatus of the kidney, and this is stored in granules and is released in response to specific secretagogues. And release of renin in the circulation is the rate limiting step. Okay, so this is the rate limiting step of the entire renin angiotensin system. And renin is a protein that consists of 340 amino acids. 340 amino acids. Okay. And the first 43 segments are cleaved to produce the active enzyme. Now, what are the regulators of renin release? The regulators of renin release include macula densa. So, this macula densa is a specialized group of cells which is located in the distal convoluted tubule of the kidney. They act as chemoreceptors for sodium and chloride load in the distal renal tubules. Okay. Then also we have the juxtaglomerular apparatus. The juxtaglomerular apparatus acts as a pressure transducer. Then it senses the stretch of the efferent arteriole and renal perfusion. And we also have the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, the sympathetic nervous system which regulates renin release in response to upright posture. And there are other factors like potassium, ANP, and angiotensin 2. So basically, the macula densa, the juxtaglomerular apparatus, and the sympathetic nervous system, they are the regulators of renin release. So these are the stimulators and these are the inhibitors of renin release. So what are the stimulators? Stimulators means, so what is the main function of renin? The main function of renin is to maintain the extracellular fluid volume. Okay. So anything which causes depletion of the fluid volume will cause stimulation of renin release. Like in case of low renal perfusion, hypotension, hemorrhage, low sodium, renal artery stenosis. So in these cases, there is a decline in the renal perfusion pressure. Okay. So this will cause stimulation of renin. Similarly, hypokalemia. Okay, so see, potassium has got opposite effects on renin and opposite effect on aldosterone. Hypokalemia is a stimulator for renin release, whereas hypokalemia is an inhibitor of aldosterone release. Then hypertension, volume overload, hyperkalemia, high sodium diet, these are inhibitors of renin release. Then what are the substrates and production of renin? So renin basically acts upon a substrate which is known as angiotensinogen. Okay, this angiotensinogen is produced in the liver, and this is the only substrate of renin. Then angiotensinogen is converted to angiotensin 1 by renin. Angiotensin 1 does not have any biological activity. Angiotensin 1 is then converted to angiotensin 2 by angiotensin converting enzyme. This angiotensin converting enzyme is localized in the cell membranes of the lungs, the intracellular granules of some tissues. And angiotensin 2 is the main biologically active angiotensin, which is created by cleaving two carboxy terminals. And angiotensin 3, you don't need to know. Angiotensin 2 is the main biologically active angiotensin. And what are the functions of angiotensin 2? The functions of angiotensin 2 is to increase aldosterone secretion from the zona glomerulosa. In addition, it also causes vasoconstriction of the blood vessels. It increases the central sympathetic outflow. It also causes catecholamine release from the adrenal medulla, and it also causes vasopressin release from the posterior pituitary. Okay, so these are the functions of angiotensin 2. So it has got all functions that actually cause an increase in the extracellular fluid volume, like increase in aldosterone secretion from the zona glomerulosa, vasoconstriction of the blood vessels, central sympathetic outflow, and increased catecholamine release from the adrenal medulla, and vasopressin release from the posterior pituitary. So this we have understood about renin and angiotensin. Now come to aldosterone. So aldosterone is a hormone that is actually produced when it is stimulated from the zona glomerulosa. Okay, so this aldosterone is exclusively synthesized in zona glomerulosa because the enzyme that is aldosterone synthase, it is situated only in the zona glomerulosa. There are three main positive regulators of aldosterone secretion: angiotensin 2, potassium, and ACTH. And the role of potassium is reversed in terms of renin and aldosteronism. Hypokalemia stimulates renin and inhibits aldosterone secretion, whereas hyperkalemia inhibits renin and stimulates aldosterone secretion. And there are three main negative regulators of aldosterone secretion. One is heparin, another is ANP, and third one is dopamine. I used to remember it like HAD, 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 okay, heparin, ANP, and dopamine. So these are the three main negative regulators of aldosterone secretion. Now, aldosterone, little bit about aldosterone. Aldosterone is weakly bound to albumin or CBG. The half life of aldosterone is 15 to 20 minutes. It undergoes inactivation in the liver to tetrahydroaldosterone. Then, classical functions are mediated by mineralocorticoid receptors. Mineralocorticoid receptors are expressed in colon, distal nephron, and hippocampus. Okay, so in addition to the kidney, it is also expressed in the colon and distal nephron and hippocampus. And some receptors are also found in heart and the brain. And one thing, both cortisol and aldosterone, they have got equal affinity towards the mineralocorticoid receptor. Okay, but the important thing is that cortisol can also act as a mineralocorticoid whenever there is overwhelming of cortisol. Okay, however, in normal individuals, this activity of cortisol is inhibited by the enzyme 11 beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase 2. Okay, so this 11 beta hsd2 actually it inactivates cortisol to cortisone. So when it becomes cortisone, it cannot act on the mineralocorticoid receptor. So there basically what happens is that both cortisol and aldosterone, they have got equal affinity for the mineralocorticoid receptor. And however, what happens, cortisol is inactivated to cortisone by 11 beta hsd2. So when it gets inactivated to cortisone, it cannot act on the aldosterone receptor. Okay, so this is the receptor specificity is determined by 11 beta hsd2 enzyme. Now this is the classical functions of aldosterone, as we know, is to maintain the extracellular fluid volume and to retain sodium and excrete potassium from the body. So basically it causes hypernatremia and hypokalemia. However, these are the classical functions which are mediated by the steroid receptors. But there are some non-classical functions as well. So what are the non-classical functions of aldosterone? There are non-classical functions like increased collagen synthesis, fibrosis, microangiopathy, upregulation of inflammation and oxidative damage. So these are actually non-classical functions of aldosterone. Now, hypertension in primary aldosteronism is because of increased volume overload and increase in peripheral resistance. And mineralocorticoid escape generally occurs 3 to 5 days of excess mineralocorticoid due to increase in atrial natriuretic peptide. So this is the table. You can see this is given in Harris. I mean, this is from Williams, but it can be simplified from Harrison as well. First, prorenin is converted to renin. So renin is an enzyme which is secreted from the juxtaglomerular apparatus of the kidney. Now, renin will act upon angiotensinogen, which is an alpha-2 microglobulin that is produced from the liver. Then angiotensinogen is converted to angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 is then converted to angiotensin 2 with the help of the enzyme angiotensin converting enzyme, okay, AC enzyme. Then angiotensin 2 then acts on the angiotensin 2 receptors, and these are the main functions of angiotensin 2, that is increase aldosterone synthesis and secretion, increase constriction of the vascular smooth muscle, increase release of norepinephrine and epinephrine from the adrenal medulla, increase central sympathetic outflow and norepinephrine release, and increase release of vasopressin. Okay, so these are the various functions of angiotensin 2.